Hey guys, what's up? I hope you're doing amazingly fine and welcome back to the channel. Now, most of you guys already know what this video is going to be about. The title is pretty self-explanatory, but the main reason that I'm making this video is just because there was another fatal crash which happened a week ago, in which a small trainee aircraft, a single engine aircraft, a Cessna 152, which belonged to Gati, had a fatal crash in which both the instructor and a trainee pilot lost their lives. Now, my condolences go to the families who have lost their loved ones, and like this. These things are really unexpected and it's something that should not occur. Now, why I'm making this video, the main reason is that I know most of you guys are aspiring pilots, and after seeing such accidents or reading about such accidents, it's really difficult to not be scared. Most of you might be having second thoughts about pursuing a career in aviation. Not only you, but even your parents might be worried about sending you for flight training. Now, if any of the things that I just said is something you're worried about, well, you have clicked on the right video. So without further ado, let's get started. So the main reason why this crash occurred will only be out after DGCA's investigation, and once the report comes out. For now, there are just speculations that the aircraft had a engine failure right after takeoff, and because the engine failed, the aircraft stalled and collided down on the ground. Now, this wasn't the only crash which happened in recent times with respect to general aviation or with respect to flying training. There was a crash which occurred in February in which an aircraft, a Cessna 172 belonging to Cover Aviation, had an engine failure and had to do a forced landing. Now, there were no casualties in there. There were two crashes before that in October 2019, one on the 4th of October where an aircraft belonging to Shirpur Aviation Academy crashed while landing, and again there were no casualties there as well. But just 2 days after that, on the 6th of October, there was a crash in which a Wings Aviation aircraft literally fell off, and it was a fatal crash. Both the pilots lost their lives. Now in this video, I'm not going to do a thorough investigation about why these things happened, why these crashes happened, because that's not my expertise. But here I'm going to give you a certain points to note with respect to whenever you're joining a flying club, and what would be the main things that are highlighted by these accidents. Now, the first thing that you can see in common in all of these accidents is most of them happened because of an engine failure. Okay. Now, in most of the cases, trust me, in most of the cases, an engine failure occurs because of bad maintenance of the aircraft. Well, one thing that I want to point out here is that the aircraft which crashed in Gati, it was a Cessna 152, which was almost 30 years old. It was somewhere from the 80s, which I know is older than most of you guys. Now, I'm not saying that an aircraft this old cannot fly, but if it is used for flying, especially for flight training, then well, it really needs to be well maintained. Now, let's keep that aside for a moment. Flying is considered to be one of the safest means of transportation. Now, if you see, there have been 4 crashes, not even in less than a year's time. Now, what do you think is the reason behind it? Now, if I go a little back in time to say 2017 or somewhere in 2015, the amount of crashes which occurred in general aviation was absolutely not as much as they are occurring right now. What do you think would be the reason for this? Let's go back a little in time. Let me tell you, when I started my flying career back in 2014, in my institute there were just 30 students in a batch, which was yearly. But now coming to 2019, which was last year, we inducted around 120 students in my own academy. So that makes it very clear to you that it's increased by around 4 times, and in a very short span of time. Now, why I'm emphasizing a lot on this is because the amount of flying clubs which were there back in 2014, which was somewhere around 28 to 30, the same number of flying clubs are still there, registered under DGCA in 2020 as well. So that makes it very clear that the rate of students is going from year to year but the amount of flying clubs in order to cater their flying training is still below. Now, for flying clubs are nothing but businesses, and if a flying club is getting 4 times more students than it usually would, it is not going to reject you for sure. It's going to take all in or every single student that it can accommodate. But now the problem arises that in order to take you in, it's a simple task, but in order to accommodate you and do everyone's flying is not as easy as that. And to do that, first thing, the flying clubs have to have a better infrastructure, and the next most important thing, they need to have more aircrafts. Now this is where the problem arises. Not many flying clubs invest in aircrafts on a very regular basis, even when they have a lot of students coming in. The reason being that buying an aircraft or leasing an aircraft is not a simple job. If you're buying an aircraft, you have to import it, get it registered, do all the formalities as per DGCA, and it takes a lot of time. But if they put so much amount of time and money and they lose students because of it, that's not going to really be good for business. Now this is where the main problem arises. Now an aircraft which was initially flying just 1 hour a day is going to fly 5-6 hours a day because of more students coming in to train on it. Now if an aircraft flies more than what it usually does, it's very obvious that its maintenance cycle is also going to come early, because DGCA has very strict rules with respect to maintenance of aircrafts in flying clubs as well as for airlines. Now when an aircraft reaches its maintenance cycle, it can take a day or two, and then at that time the aircraft will usually be grounded, just like you send your cars and bikes for servicing. Now you know where this is leading to. If an aircraft is grounded for a day or two, you know no one can fly on it, and if no one flies on it, how will the flying club generate revenue? Now some flying clubs which are basically small, I have seen a lot of malpractices which go about. The maintenance cycles are not regular, the aircrafts are not taken care of, and most of the aircrafts are really old. Now it is obvious that this thing is not legal, and some or the other day it's gonna backfire, and that is when accidents like these occur. Now I know every one of you have a question in their head, something that is going on that tells you that how do I know whether the flying club that I'm currently taking admission in or I'm going to fly with has good aircrafts, are the aircrafts old, are they maintained properly or no? Now yes, if you want to know this, the best way I would say is to go upfront and ask the flying club itself. Now whenever you go and want to take admission into a flying club, you can straight on ask them how many aircrafts they have, and the main thing I think you should know is the registration of the aircraft. If you have the registration marking of an aircraft, you can look up the aircraft on DGCA's website, know what year it was manufactured, if it's leased, who it belongs to, and a lot of other information. I'll put the link down and you can do it as well. So now let's say you joined a flying club, you're about to start your flying training, and while going through your flight training, you see that okay, in the flying club that you're flying at, things are not going right, okay, and by this, these things are not really very sophisticated. It's clear, and most of you will understand it when you do your flying training. Simple things like an aircraft suddenly becomes unserviceable, iska part usme ja raha hai, iska part isme aa raha hai. Now if something like this happens, you should report it. Not only report it, but stand against it. Now I know many of you will say that when I'm flying, I just want to finish my hours quickly, and if I try to be a problem for the authorities or for the instructors, they're not going to do my flying. But guys, do you really think it's worth it keeping your mouth shut and not telling them about this, or not giving the right authorities information about what wrong is going on in your flying club? Let me give you guys a simple word of advice. There is a very fine line between you saying no for a flight that you think is unsafe and taking that flying and losing your life. You're gonna be the pilot, you're gonna be responsible for your life if you're flying solo or with an instructor as well. You need to see that the aircraft is completely airworthy and whether it is capable of taking off and landing safely back on the ground. So if you think that the aircraft that you're just gonna fly, maybe solo or maybe with an instructor, you are the PIC, you are the pilot, you are responsible for your own life. If you think that the aircraft has even slightest of a problem and which can result in a crash, you shouldn't fly it. As simple as that. Tell the higher authorities, tell the CFI, tell the engineers if after a flight you seem to notice something that is not right in an aircraft as well. So guys, that's the one thing that I wanted to tell you guys through this video, that please be safe. If you think something is wrong, report it, and if still things are not being done right, you can go to higher authorities, you can write an email to DGCA or anything. Please do not fear that my flying will be affected, because it's okay to delay your flying, but it's not okay to lose your life because of that. Because the main aim here is safety. In flying, even DGCA or any airline, even if you fly, the main thing is safety of you and your passengers. Because firstly, in your flying training, you're responsible for your own life. If you do not care enough about it, and if you keep going around with an aircraft which you know is not capable or is not airworthy at that moment, you are risking, and you're building up a mentality which might risk a lot of lives later on in your career. So do not do that. So with that said, I guess we are at the end of the video. I would like to tell you guys that if any of you guys are looking for ground training, or are appearing for your CPL papers and need any type of guidance, well, we are starting a new batch at Maverick Aviation, mostly I think in 2 weeks time. And if any of you are interested in that, I will put a link down in the description. You can fill up the form and I will get back to you with any of your queries. So with that said, I guess we are at the end of the video, and for now I'll sign off. Till then, stay safe, take care, stay home, and stay golden. Bye bye.